She heard the second cry before she even understood what was happening. One baby, then, moments later, another. The room that had been filled with relief just seconds earlier went completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke, because in her world, this wasn't just a surprise, it was a sign, and not everyone agreed on what it meant. The midwife's face changed first, a flicker of something, not joy, not quite fear either, something in between. The mother didn't understand yet. She was exhausted, disoriented, still catching her breath. She looked down and saw two small faces instead of one, and for a single fragile moment, she felt something she couldn't name, a strange mixture of love and dread, arriving at exactly the same time. Outside the room, word was already spreading, and depending on where in the ancient world this family lived, what happened next could go one of two very different ways. In one village, drums might begin to sound in celebration. In another, the elders would already be discussing what needed to be done, quietly, urgently, before anyone else found out. Two babies, the same moment, the same blood, and yet across the ancient world, this single event could mean a blessing or a death sentence. So why? Why did something as natural as twin birth become one of the most feared, most fiercely debated moments a family could experience? Why did some ancient cultures worship twins as gods, while others, faced with the exact same moment, chose to end one of those tiny lives before it had barely begun? Try to imagine it from her side for a moment. You've just survived childbirth, something that in the ancient world killed staggering numbers of women. You're exhausted beyond words, and instead of a single, simple answer, a boy or a girl, healthy or not, you're handed a mystery. Two children where the world expected one. You don't get an ultrasound explaining this beforehand. You get shock in real time, in front of everyone who matters to you, and their reactions tell you everything about what happens next. Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek cultures alike met multiple births with ambivalence, often viewing them as a bad omen, meaning the mother's joy, if she felt any, had to wait to see which way the room would turn. To understand why twins terrified so many ancient societies, you have to understand what a single birth meant to people who had no explanation for how bodies actually worked. Reason 1. Twins broke the rules of fatherhood. In a world without genetics, a single child was simple to explain. One mother, one father, one story. But two children, born at once. Ancient physicians and philosophers explained this through a belief called superfecundation, the idea that more than one father could be responsible for the two children, since each was assumed to require its own separate act of conception. With twins that looked different from one another, suspicion of the mother's faithfulness followed almost automatically, while identical twins were instead explained away as an excess of male seed or the direct hand of a god. Either explanation put the mother in an impossible position, cursed by divine forces beyond her control, or unfaithful, and now living proof of it, standing in front of her own community. Reason 2. Twins broke the rules of inheritance. In cultures built around land, power, and bloodlines, twins weren't just unusual, they were a walking succession crisis. In many cultures practicing kin-land inheritance, twins would be killed specifically to prevent the future violence and strife their birth threatened to cause for the family, village, or ruling house. Even one of history's most famous stories carries this weight. According to legend, Romulus and Remus were exposed at birth, left to die before being found and nursed by a wolf. And it was Romulus alone who went on to found Rome in 753 BC. Even in myth, the story doesn't end with two equal heirs. It ends the way so many ancient twin stories did, with only one surviving to inherit what came next. Reason 3. The shared soul. One belief shows up across an extraordinary number of unrelated ancient cultures, almost as if separate societies arrived at the same unsettling idea independently. A shared soul between twins was a common belief in many societies. The idea that the two children were in some spiritual sense one being split into two bodies, so much so that the death of one twin was often felt to herald the other's death soon after. Imagine carrying that belief as a parent. Every illness, every small accident involving one child child became, in the eyes of your community, a countdown for the other. Many societies viewed twins as fundamentally fragile, believed likely to die without careful, meticulously equal treatment between the two. Reason 4. The same event, two opposite verdicts. Nowhere does this contradiction show up more clearly across West Africa, where two neighboring cultures looked at the exact same event and reached completely opposite conclusions. The Igbo-speaking people of southeast Nigeria feared the birth of twins deeply, while their Yoruba neighbors in southwest Nigeria, living just next door, praised twin births as something to be celebrated. Same continent, same era, same biological event, and two entirely different verdicts on whether those children were allowed to live. Twins weren't feared because ancient people were cruel. They were feared because ancient people were trying, in the only ways they knew, how to make sense of something that broke every rule they thought they understood about how one life was supposed to enter the world. She looked down again at the two small faces in front of her. Whatever the room around her believed, blessing, omen, curse, or miracle, one truth hadn't changed. They were hers, both of them.